Before we get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support over the years. It is greatly appreciated. Special thanks to Mike and Patrick, the latest viewers to Embrace the Darkness. Thank you very much, guys. You are awesome, and I hope you draw nothing but elder signs as you play the Arkham Horror LCG. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We are making our way through the rogue cards in the Feast of Hemlock Vale Investigator expansion. This is part 2 of that series. The first card we're going to talk about in this batch is Fake Credentials. It's a 3-cost asset with an intellect, skill icon, item, and illicit trait. As an action, choose an enemy at your location and exhaust Fake Credentials. Parlay, test Intellect 1. This test gets +1 difficulty for each suspicion on Fake Credentials. If you succeed, discover 1 clue at your location and place 1 resource on Fake Credentials as suspicion. If you fail, you must either discard Fake Credentials or the chosen enemy attacks you, and it takes up a hand slot. Thoughts on Fake Credentials?
Yeah, so I remember, this one was previewed pretty early, wasn't it? And I
Yeah,
remember
I
thinking
believe
about
so.
this card. Yeah, I remember thinking about this card a lot. First of all, one thing I have to say is that this artist, Lin Song, they've been like, I've noticed there's been a trend where that artist has been doing this etching style of like the characters of Arkham Horror. There's like that artist has appeared in like quite a few cards so far, and I hope that FFG continues to use them because personally I'm a big fan of when the cards reflect the characters of the game. So super cool. It's also kind of cute that
awesome.
yeah, it's also kind of cute that it's not the investigator in the box that it shows, which is like kind of neat. Yeah. So this card, I've thought about this card a lot, and I feel like, why would you play this over lockpicks? Because lockpicks doesn't require an enemy, and that's what I've really come to.
I think there is an answer to that question, but I also think that that is an entirely valid question. And the answer to that question is very simple. It's because Lockpicks level 0 is a terrible card.
Oh yeah, that's true.
If
Lockpicks
you're
level 0
prone,
breaks. Yeah.
yeah.
Because,
If you are prone to frequent, so the nice thing about this card, because yes, you said this card got previewed, I think fairly early on, and it had a lot of discussion because there are 3 cards that kind of augment / reflect the rogue clue getting 1 hand slotted, approximately 3 resources, which is lockpicks, but then we are talking about level 0 and level 1, and I think it is fair to say that this card is a lot better when compared to the level 0 than the level 1, but I'll get back to why you might want to play this instead of the level 1 as well. Thieves Kit, which came out of Scarlet Keys, Damning Testimony, which also came out of Scarlet Keys, and notably that one also uses intellect. Yeah, lockpicks, Thieves Kit, Damning Testimony, and this. That's the quad, the 4 things. Okay, so what does this have that none of the other ones have? And it has a couple of things, actually. First and foremost, it doesn't provoke tax opportunity. There's a recent twist on the card. If you want to have a built-in, what's the prevented tax opportunity thing called? You would know this. The spell that has Dexter on it with the glass breaking.
Yeah.
Obfuscation.
Obfuscation, yeah.
This has a sort of built-in obfuscation.
True.
The second thing is, it doesn't care about shroud value, which is actually huge when...
If you're playing lockpicks, you don't care about shroud value either.
Don't you? If you're playing someone like... Okay,
really
well, fair enough. But like, if you're playing someone like Jenny or Skids, like I've definitely had situations where I couldn't use lockpicks level 2 or lockpicks level 1 without risking losing a charge. And if you're using lockpicks level 0 in that situation, you're just losing the lockpicks.
I'm really thinking about comparing this to like lockpicks level 1.
No, fair. But I think the point I'm trying to make is that like if you're comparing it to a level 1 card, then yes, obviously the level 1 card is better. But also like I also think that this card has niche utility. It also importantly is weak enough that it doesn't automatically blow the other cards out of the water, which I actually like because it means that the other cards have a reason to keep living. You need an enemy at your location. This exhausts, which is a major drawback that it shares with lockpicks. But yeah, the skill test kind of skills, and then if it fails, you either discard it or the enemy attacks you, so you have a little bit of control in keeping this in play if you lose an early one. It is importantly a parlay, so assuming you're using Fine Clothes, I think you get to use this thing like 4 times before you ever have to worry about the test. Which, if I'm not playing like a primary clue getter, I think that's what I expect from my level 0 like asset, right? Like if I'm
Oh,
already
if you're
playing
not
Flightless,
right, if you're not
if you're
playing a
flexing,
primary clue getter,
if you're
okay.
just flexing and you're like evading enemies, like that is the main thing you're doing. You're like, or you're playing Alessandra and you have your signatures to get clues as well, or you have other cards to get clues. I don't I don't think this card is amazing. I think this card is definitely a little on the weak side, especially when compared to the level 4 version, which is absolutely bananas. But this card has a space as just like, yeah, I'm not upset to put this in my level 0 deck, and it'll just do the work that it needs to do.
Yeah, something else I also liked about this that I really like is the fact that it's illicit. And so ever since last set, I've very much been an enthusiast for Underworld Market. I love increasing my deck size. So the problem with Underworld Market was that often enough you have a hard time filling all 10 slots of your Underworld Market without adding more guns. Fake Credentials is an illicit card that is actually pretty decent. That is not more guns. So you can use this. You can actually put like 2 fake credentials and 2 lockpicks even in your Underworld Market and not feel so bad. I do like that because one problem with like every Arkham Horror deck nowadays is card slots. So but the thing is, like, if you're a rogue, you can have 40 card slots, or well, in my case, 55 as
Yeah,
plays.
I agree. I mean, I like a lot of the illicit events as well, so I've never really struggled. And I mean, I tend to play on the flex side of things, so I don't mind putting 2 guns into my Underworld Market deck as well. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, the space that this takes up is probably a little bit less contested just because it is illicit. Like, illicit is a very good keyword to have these days, which is kind of anti-thematic, but yeah, we'll allow it. It is a rogue thing. The thing is that, as I think we're both kind of circling around, is like this is not the best rogue clue getting tool, but it has enough utility that if you put it in if you find the right slot for it, it will
Mm-hmm.
probably perform better than some of the other things because of that like niche utility, right? If you are using this in Trish, you don't need to worry about the attack opportunity from the enemy. If you are using this in
Yeah.
Alessandra, you can use it as a bonus action. If you have your fine closeout, you could break like a massive shroud location without breaking a sweat. Like there are things to like about this card,
There's one glaring problem with that, and it needs to be tabooed right away. They
which
misspelled
is
succeed. They misspelled succeed. Yeah.
Sucks
well,
said.
Yep.
success.
Literally unplayable.
So I would like to return to a couple points that you mentioned, Veronica. One being that this does not provoke attacks of opportunity, which is huge, and it ignores Shroud, which I have found in the Alessandra deck that I have been playing is a huge problem. Depending on which campaign you're playing, say, because I tested Alessandra versus Lost in Time and Space and Shattered Aeons. And in Lost in Time and Space, you have a lot of locations, low shroud locations. So Alessandra's 4 intellect, you can generally get by. Shattered Aeons does not have that. A lot of 4 shroud locations. And suddenly you are 4 intellect is not enough to get by. And I think, now I don't know this for certain, but it feels like the Alessandra decks I've seen run low on skills and
Yeah.
are
Look,
trying
you haven't
to.
seen mine then. That's for sure.
Well, no, I haven't seen yours, but the one I was playing was running a lot fewer skills than I'm used to, and it didn't include this card at first, and I had to go back and add it in because I was really felt like I needed some sort of clue getting thing, and the fact that it's a parlay and works with Alessandra's extra ability is good. And in solo you don't necessarily need to be grabbing multiple clues at a go. So this is generally good enough for ratings.
0?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna agree. I think you've talked me up to 0.
It's
Now that I'm
either a
starting to understand
0
it.
or a bless, but I feel like it's just like it's not
Yeah.
bless in the sense that like it goes into one specific deck. It goes into a couple of different utility things, but I think it's also often like gonna be your third or fourth like lockpicks, Deathgate, whatever you want.
Yeah, I will admit, looking at, because I brought up my old Alessandra deck list from back in like January, I noticed like what I did instead of fake credentials, I had in those slots, I had String of Curses, Kicking the Hornet's Nest, and Breaking and Entering.
Yeah.
On top of her 3 Beguiles. Yeah.
When you mentioned fewer skills, like that makes sense if you're playing a lot of events. I don't think it makes any sense if you're doing a ton of assets because that doesn't like you just don't have the economy. But yeah, I think like this will work if you.
I do like the underworld market thing. Like so that way you
Yeah.
have room for four lock picks. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's got Trish on the art. I like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'll go
Yeah,
0.
this absolutely earns like half a point just for the art.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
I'm
should've
going to
seen
go
our discussion.
0. I think if you have, say, the core set and Feast of Hemlock Vale,
Oh, you're totally playing this.
you're totally playing this. And
Yeah.
because Lockpick 0 is so bad, it's just not worth it.
Isn't Lockpick still 1 in the core set now?
Course, no. Lockset level 1 is in the core set, and Lockpick level 0
Yeah.
is from Winifred's back, I believe.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
true.
you don't even have that.
But still, if you
You're
have a
using
small
flashlights.
pool,
Yeah.
small pool, you're probably
Yeah.
playing this. Yeah.
There is another fake credentials. It is level 4. 2-cost asset, intellect, and agility skill icon item, and illicit trait. As an action, choose an enemy at your location. Parlay test 0 intellect. This test gets +1 difficulty for each suspicion on fake credentials. If you succeed, discover 1 clue at your location or a connecting location. If you did not succeed by 2 or more, place 1 resource on fake credentials as suspicion. If you fail, return fake credentials to your hand, and it takes up a hand slot. Now, this is the one I had in my deck and have yet to play. And
correct.
When I read it, I was like, wow, this is...
It does look really
good.
strong. It is
Pretty
a
damn
lot
good.
of XP though. So
4 XP. I mean, this feels like Lockpick's level 4 to me. The Lockpick level 4 they'll never give us.
yeah.
But I it's kind of funny because I'm looking as I made mention to in some of our previous videos is I have Arkham DB open on my other monitor while we're doing this recording, and the only review on here is pretty negative. So I'm pretty sure I will be going to Arkham DB and writing a much more positive review after we're done recording. Although maybe you can
you know
change my
why?
mind.
Because it's too much XP and no one plays it.
I haven't seen it hit the table yet because it's also not in the Alessandro decks that I've seen. But
Yeah.
there's an awful lot of text on here about if you fail or if you don't succeed by 2 or more for a card that starts at difficulty 0.
That's gonna be a little hard. Yeah.
Like it's this card.
Yeah.
Like this card just reads: choose an enemy's location, parlay. If you succeed, discover 1 clue at your location or a connecting location. Like it's like
The connecting part is interesting, actually.
is interesting and powerful. And also, if you fail, you
Yeah.
just bounce it to your hand. Like you don't even lose it permanently. You get
Yeah.
you play it again. It only costs 2. It's got a resource discount as well.
Yeah.
Like
That's
I think
that's a hilarious thought. It's like, oh no, they've recognized my credentials are fake. Let me just put them back in my pocket and then take them out again.
a different one. Yeah, I mean, I assume you're drawing it. You're just putting a different mustache on the thing there. But yeah, like this, I am of the opinion that this card is incredible for solo and flex investigators whose goal is not to get a bajillion clues, but to get like a reliable clue every turn. Like
Yeah, it
this
doesn't one
card
stop
is.
shop. Yeah. It also doesn't exhaust, by the way, which is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Wait, it doesn't exhaust? Oh, sorry.
It doesn't
Then
exhaust. Yeah.
let me rephrase this. This card is mad, and this card is good even for dedicated clue getters. If you're playing Alessandra, put this in your deck. Why haven't I told Dante to put this in his deck yet? This card is This card is.
It is a one-stop shop, but it is. I think it's appropriate for the XP cost. Like 4 is a lot for something that gives you 1 clue per 1 action. Like,
yes, agreed. But it is like it to me. Okay, I don't play a lot of hard expert, so it's hard for me to like judge the harder ends of Arkham. This card feels like one of those cards where it's just like it's almost like no thoughts, head empty. Click the button until the clues fall out. Like this is. Like, it's not seeker levels clue acquisition, obviously, but you're a rogue, you have extra actions, and I think, like, to me, getting a ton of clues in a single action is very overrated, and being able to get clues in situations where you would otherwise be, like, on a, like, meta level, right? I think people see big number of clues and the neurons activate, but the fact that you can just click this when you have a spare action and an enemy at your location, and you can build your deck to have enemies at your location a lot of the time, and pick up clues, like, you don't need to get 3 clues in 1 action if you can just spend a spare action that somebody else would have to spend moving into position, which you don't have to because you're a rogue, you're self-sufficient, you've already dealt with the enemy yourself, you don't need to wait for the Guardian to show up and tell you how to do his job. Like, the ability for one card to solve all of your problems is pretty good.
So here's the thing, though. In this same set, there are also XP cards that solve all of your problems. Like, so here's a question: would you run this over 2 copies of Snitch?
I don't know if I would. However, Snitch. I think Snitch is a mistake.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about Snitch when we get there. Yeah,
Snitch is just a mistake. If you had said any other 2 XP card, I think the answer would have been yes, I would, because again, you can put it. The thing is also you can put it in the market, so you will guaranteed find it by turn 5. You don't need to play 2 cards of that, 2 copies of this. So
that's right.
the thing.
That's not a bad plan.
You buy 1 copy of this and you put it in your market deck, and by turn 5 you will have drawn this, which is like, as far as reliability goes, is actually like perfectly serviceable, and I think that's good enough. I mean, yeah. So like, literally Snitch. No, if you want to, like, if my goal is to win the campaign, then no, you play Snitch because Snitch is like, it's kind messed up.
But we'll get to that. Yeah.
It is literally like one of like it's the numbers on that card don't make any sense. But yeah, no, this is
okay.
This is good. I think I have my grade.
You
try to talk me down, and I have only grown stronger in my resolve.
This is like a one-stop shop, and it doesn't exhaust, so it's like a lockpicks, but like doesn't have the. It's like a lockpicks, right? But it doesn't exhaust. But then like in exchange, you have to have an enemy. So it's like, all right, then it's about your group and like, you know, how you're dealing with enemies and, you know, the rest of Arkham Horror, the card game. Okay, I'm starting to like this thing a bit more. Me, I'm a Vamp fan. You know, like Lamp level 3. Speaking of cards that solve all your problems, but you know, we're talking about
Vamp level 3 is not a mistake though. That is at least
that's appropriate. Yeah, I feel like.
And I don't know if you're asking me like, would I play this over 2 copies of Vamp? I think I would, especially because Vamp level 0 is like also like quite good. And
I think maybe it's just the campaigns I was playing in, but playing both Lost in Time and Space and Shattered Aeons, this thing is so good because you can grab clues from other locations that you don't necessarily need to go to. Which
in those 2 scenarios you mentioned,
both of those scenarios, not having to go to locations is very good, and especially in Shattered Aeons where you end up with that stupid enemy that will drop clues on locations you've already been to, and you can't claim those locations while they have clues on them. So suddenly you're like, well, I can fake credentials at the location I'm at and grab a clue from the location I don't want to go back to, where that enemy you may have had no choice, you had to drop it there. It spawns a clue. You're like, well, I was going to go and get that. And the fact that it basically sets the shroud to 0 is huge. Because sometimes, especially in a lot of scenarios, that starting location where you're on can have a very high shroud. It'll have 0 clues, but it'll have 4 shroud. So
yeah, I know what you mean.
Being able to set that shroud to 0 and then say, okay, I'm not getting a clue here, but I'm getting a clue from the place. Like, say you end up in Lost in Time and Space. I think it's the Prismatic Cascade or something like that has 3 clues, but once you take the last clue, it disappears. So you want to grab 2, but you don't want to grab the 3rd. But you're going to maybe need that clue at some point. So you leave that location on the table, but you're investigating from another dimension, which I think has 4 shrouds. So you set that shroud to 0, grab the clue from Prismatic Cascade, and then you know, you don't have to worry about taking a horror when you get dumped back into another dimension. So I definitely think this card has...
Sort of like this thing. Yeah, it's the one-stop shop. The fact that you only actually need 1 copy, because you could spend the other 4 XP on Underworld Market. Like
ratings?
I think I'm giving this an elder sign. I'm like trying to be fair, but also like I'm also just excited about this card. It's a card that makes me like happy just to think about it and think about playing it. So yeah, you know, heck with it. But we'll be a little optimistic. We'll call this one an elder sign. I might come back and regret that later, but you know, sometimes it's nice to be happy about cards too.
I'm gonna say +1 because I feel like it's properly costed XP wise, and in a class that is XP hungry.
Yep.
If it were like 2 XP, I'd be like, oh my god, this is incredible. But at 4, I feel like it's about right. So I'm gonna go with +1.
Yeah, I'm torn between an Elder Sign and a +1. I'm gonna go Elder Sign. I think it's in the scenarios that I've been playing, this thing has, it's valuable, and the fact that it sets the shroud to 0 can be huge, especially in those later scenarios where, when you're playing at the beginning of a campaign, they tend to take it easy on you, but then, once you hit scenario 8, the shrouds can get a little difficult to manage, and the fact that this just says, nope, it's going to be shroud 0 for a test or two is great.
I also I admit I like the built-in succeed by 2 synergy. I mean, you're encouraged to succeed by 2 or more, which means that you're already getting synergy with your other succeed by 2 stuff. So I think that's also a nice cherry on top. Yeah.
The next card we're going to talk about is the Fox Mask. It is a 1-cost asset with an intellect and agility skill icon, item, charm, and mask trait. Limit 1 mask per investigator. Uses 2 offerings. Replenish one of these offerings after you move out of a location with an enemy. As a pre-triggered ability, spend 1 offering. You get +2 intellect or +2 agility for this skill test. Limit once per test. Doesn't take up any slots.
Ooh, we get this chain Elder Signs back to back. This card is amazing.
I think I've said with every mask so far that the masks have gotten me to enjoy True Solo. I feel like they were the missing piece of my True Solo experience, and Fox Mask was definitely part of it. I've been playing True Solo Jenny, True Solo Lola, True Solo Alessandra, and Fox Mask has been very good in all 3.
Yeah, the only mask that I've been a little down on is the Seeker one, only because I think it's not exactly lining up well in what that faction actually needs to do, which is it's already amazing at getting boosting intellect. Guess which faction really likes getting a +2 intellect boost on occasion, and also really loves an agility boost when a really big enemy comes around, and also can move out of the other thing is that the Seeker mask I mentioned is a little tricky to replenish sometimes. It's got a limited number of uses in a given scenario, and also if your teammates aren't cooperating with you, then sometimes it struggles to replenish. This does not struggle to replenish at all. In fact, it is often I mean, our team is the other extreme end where we are never killing enemies ever, but I have struggled to spend these offerings faster than they come in, and that is with actively investigating. If you are playing any of the 4 intellect rogues, then this is effectively your investigation tool already. You don't even need lockpicks anymore. You just play this. If you are, if you're ever in a situation where you're worried about evading something, now you're no longer worried. Power creep is the only reason to dislike this card. It is so good.
Yeah, in fact, a very common turn that I would have when I was playing my Alessandra playthrough of Hemlock Vale was make a big evade, something I really need to evade. Spend use Fox Mask, evade at 6, move out of the location, replenish the Fox Mask. It was very much it's everything you loved about Streetwise, except not having to spend resources on Streetwise.
It feels a little bit like Fieldwork inverted in that sense, right?
Oh, there you go.
It sets up this specific play pattern that you want to do over and over again. The only rules question that I have about this card is if I am engaged with the enemy and we both leave the location, does that count as replenish? And I don't know the answer. And if anybody does know the answer, I would love to know a source for that, because I don't think there is one yet.
No, it's not on the page, not on the Arc of DV page. There isn't.
No.
Yeah.
I would lean towards yes, but also you're a rogue, just evade the dang thing. it's yeah. I've discarded in 2 of our decks. Alessandra and Finn are both running this thing, and it is it's a card I would love to have every single game, because even in the end game we are in right now, this still feels like a reasonable card to have, while also not it doesn't completely make the game an auto play, because those 2 offerings will run out quicker than you think. So I do yes, it's a little power creepy, but it's not I don't mind it. Like you mentioned, solo and investigators who are maybe a little under the curve definitely get a big boost from this. So in general, I'm actually kind of happy with the mask design. I think they're good, healthy for the game. They're probably healthy for the game in the long run. We'll see. Maybe I'll eat my words.
I'm treating it as almost like a power crept Streetwise. because like it does everything Streetwise wants you to do, except use
Streetwise level 0, you mean?
actually even Streetwise level 3 because you have to pay resources to get Streetwise level 3. So
Yeah, but that
yeah.
one's permanent. You start the game with that
That
one.
is permanent. So
Also, I can
mhm.
say that the number of times I've used Streetwise 3 or 4 times on the same test is greater than 0. So there is also that.
Yeah,
Listen,
that's true.
if you are playing Jenny in Dunwich and your best option for dealing with Silas Bishop is a basic of 8, Streetwise paying 8 resources is a perfectly reasonable play. Yeah, I think I think that this card is like, I mean, we're talking about singing its praises, but like it's another time. Manfromleng, I don't know if you want to add anything to it.
I have nothing to add to this conversation. The masks are all very good, very, very strong.
And I think this one stands out above the rest. Like,
I think it does actually. Yeah.
I think, I mean, this and the Guardian one. I think the Sparrow Mask is very interesting, but because it only boosts defensive stats, it is in a kind of different part of the conversation. The Owl Mask, it's Owl Mask for Mystic, right? Is specifically very. I have heard, I have not yet played it, it's on my shortlist, is incredible for Amina. It's like the missing piece for Amina, which makes sense because it cares about Doomplay. Seeker Mask I already talked about. I think this and Fox Mask, because they're like actively doing what the class wants to be doing and helping you do the thing better. Like it is, 10 out of 10, no notes.
I can't imagine how the game might have been different had this mask existed when the core set was released. And you were playing the rogues.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, getting clues was such a pain in the ass. You know, Streetwise sort of revolutionized that, and this just, it's like, here's 2 resource, here's 2 intellect. Usually that's going to be enough, and it'll just keep replenishing. So, Elder Signs across the board?
I'd say so. Yeah.
Yep.
The next card is Scrimshaw Charm. It's a 1-cost asset with a willpower skill icon, item, charm, and curse trait. As an action, add 1 to 3 curse tokens to the Chaos Bag and exhaust Scrimshaw Charm. Gain 1 resource. For each token added, gain 1 additional resource, and it takes up the accessory slot.
And we're back down again. Okay, so this card is, depending on who you ask, this card might have some niche uses or be completely unplayable. The problems are as following. So, it takes up the accessory slot. That is already that is a big ask. Lucky Cigarette Case, to me at least, defines the rogue as a faction to some extent, and even if it doesn't, there are a number of other really good accessories that are fighting for that slot. This card is not exactly getting there. You can spend an action to add 1 curse token to gain 2 resources. So you are doubling up the efficiency of your basic resource action, but you also played a resource and an action to play this card. Yes. So no, 2 actions or 2 curses, 3 curses. You know, okay, we're skipping ahead to the 3 curses math. 3 curses, 4 resources. We are getting a better e-cash potentially every turn as long as you can get the curses out of the bag quick enough.
Which is really what this is about.
What this is about, but I'm getting there. The thing is that I still think that this is bad econ at that point. Like, I don't think you're playing this for the money. The money is a side benefit. You're playing this because you want curses in the bag. And I think the problem at that point is that, so for starters, you're not a rogue, you're a mystic. You have cards in your deck that care about curses, well then you are probably a mystic if you want them this badly. Right? Seekers also have cards that care about curses, but Seekers don't want them this badly. I think so you're probably a mystic. And you know what faction other than Rogue really cares about its accessory slot? Yeah, so that's the second problem with this card. And I don't think you're going to convince your teammate Rogue, who just wants to play a normal Rogue game, to give up their Lucky Cigarette Case so that you can maybe get an extra point of damage with your Armageddon. Which is where I'm kind of down this card, because Rogue, this doesn't fit into the Rogue playstyle at all. Rogues want a couple of curses that they can cheat with False Covenant, right? That is the entire point of the Rogue curse style, is they want to reap the rewards and then not have to pay the cost because they can cheat it. This isn't a good reward, and the cheating and it's poorly situated for you to cheat, because if you dump 3 curse tokens into the bag a couple of turns in a row, like you are actually making big money off of this card, then you are putting in more curses than your mitigation tools are going to be able to handle. And if you're only putting them in a little bit at a time, then the slot cost is way too big, right? And the action cost, obviously. Like, I don't think you are ever activating this not putting 3 curses into the bag unless, like, the bag is already full. Like, I've gone through this entire review not mentioning Faustian Bargain because I really want to, like, be able to talk about this card without mentioning the problem, like the the elephant in the room. I'm not saying that, like, no, obviously the most powerful, or like one of the most powerful level 0 economy cards in the game is better than this very niche economy card. You could have figured that one out yourself. The problem is that even in situations where curses are better and you don't care as much about the amount of money it's generating, I still don't think that this is good enough, because cards like Tempt Fate or anything that lets you get curses for value, and if you want to just generate en masse economy, like we've already talked about Bianca in the previous video, we talked about our friend Dario in the previous video as well, and yeah, I would rather, like, yes, I would actually unironically rather play Dario than this. Let's just go there. So yeah, does anyone play this? I think it's very niche.
So one thing I will say is that I think one of my issues with the Innsmouth cycle is that there were not enough ways to get curses and blesses in the bag, especially at 0 XP. I think it's because Innsmouth was kind of split between bless and curse and also like leftovers from the starter decks. If you remember, you know, especially the XP cards of Innsmouth. And so given that there was like not enough low-level ways to get curses and blesses in the bag, at least this like addresses that problem. So I'm like, I'm glad it's in the game, if that makes sense. It's not, I don't think it's very good, but I'm kind of glad it exists.
My problem is, and now I'm taking a page out of your book, because I don't actually like to comment on designer intent all that often, because I think that there's a lot of things happening when a card gets designed, and I sometimes feel like it's putting words in the mouth or like talking poorly about people who maybe had very different things in their minds. But this feels like them hearing the reaction, there are not enough level 0 cards that add curse to the bag, and printing a card that is primarily meant to put curse in the bag. If we are talking about making this card like how I would want it, it doesn't gain you 1 resource by default. It only gains you resource equal to the amount of curse tokens, and it's a free trigger. Okay, that's the card that I want this to be. I just don't want to pay the action, or make it not take up a slot.
Make it neutral.
This is still unplayable if it's neutral.
Well, what I'm saying is, if you want to address the problem of like there's not enough ways to add curses into the bag, just like more neutral options.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, so it's like you could think of this as like an alternate. You could just make this like an alternate emergency cache, you know, at that point or something. I don't know. So yeah, I see. There is one thing to note about this is that if you're playing a heavy curse strategy, Lucky Cigarette Case might not be in your deck because it's harder to trigger if you're just like absorbing.
That is fair. But I mean, I still think, actually, if I may, I think that is actually a mistake, because I think, in my experience at least, if you are playing a rogue in a heavy curse strategy, then odds are somebody else is taking care of the actual like main batch of curses, because they're the mystic and they have favor of the moon.
Oh,
and you can handle the one, like, you're gonna get 1 or 2 curses on your tests on average. You can handle 1 curse with a the Covenant, and then like the curses should not be coming out of nowhere, because you and your team have talked about the fact that you're going to be doing a curse theme, and you have picked up False Covenant with your start, or with like early on. So
and personally, I love False Covenant, because it's like now all those curses are +1s for you. Yeah, so then and then if you're doing it that way,
you're misremembering what False Covenant does. Blasphemous Covenant is the one that puts them back into the bag and gives you +1. False Covenant just removes the curse token from the bag.
It turns them into zeros. Yeah, it turns them into zeros for you.
Yeah, it turns them into zeros, but doesn't put them back. Importantly, it just gets rid of them. And if you want lots of money, there's another card that we are going to talk about next that does this a lot better, I think. But we should probably finish rating this card and then.
Yeah, last thing. I feel like if you want to do this effect and get curses in the bag, I feel like you're better off with playing Priest of 2 Fades.
Yep.
From Innsmouth. I think that does what this does. Action, like, but with only 1 action, and actually still has a use. Like, it gives you blesses and it absorbs a pretty decent amount of soak for you. So I'd say toss this out, put in Priest of 2 Fades instead.
The only curse deck that I have played with some of the new cards is a Rex Murphy deck, and I was actually kind of surprised that he doesn't really need help adding curses, because he's using his ability to add curses to instead of drop clues. And so the problem I ran into is I had the bag full of curses and then just couldn't draw them out quick enough. And so I would not play this card in that, because I don't need any help adding curses at that point. I actually would prefer to have a card that was like, get the curses out so I can keep adding them in again, so I can keep triggering the abilities, not I have 10 curses in the bag and you think, okay, I'm going to draw a bunch of curses now, and then sit there for the rest of the game and like you're waiting for that one turn where you draw the 4 curses or whatnot and really fail something and get some of those curses back. So I was trying to think of what I would rate this one, and honestly I think I'm going to go Frost Token on this one, simply because I don't know what to think about it, and it just kind of leaves me cool. Like, as an econ card,
Frost Token.
as an econ card, I'm not playing this, and as a curse card, I'm not sure. So I feel like I feel like I have to kind of punt on this one. I could certainly see something like this, just as an econ card. There are plenty of others, and we're going to talk about another one here in a second. So this is not something I'd be reaching for, especially in the accessory slot.
Oh, yeah.
Because the accessory slot is pretty contested in Rogue and Mystic, to be honest.
Well, if I get to use the Frost Token, then I will use the Frost Token, because, is it better out than... Yeah, because it's not an auto-fail, I think, but it's, like, pretty close. Yeah, we'll just go Frost Token. Come, we're bringing back the classic.
I'm going to go Elder Thing.
Yeah, I think that's where I'd probably end up if I played with this thing and tried to find the deck for it. It's just, to me, it's like, how many times... So I get this on the table, how many times am I going to want to trigger it? And you got to trigger
once,
it.
Maybe.
You got to trigger it, for the 3 curse tokens to really, maximize your value. How many times a game am I going to be doing that? At which point I'm like, well, why am I playing this card when I could just play something else?
If there was a way to have this as being like a roguey Favor of the Moon, like let's say you put it into play, right? And let's say there was an action that like you loaded curse tokens onto it, and you got a benefit, and then you like somehow got the curses off, and like it was actually like an interesting card that like dealt with curses instead of just adding them to the bag. I think there'd be something there.
Yes, if this card was a completely different card, then it might be more interesting.
If this card was a completely different card, then it might be more interesting. Yeah, okay, which kind of explains all our ratings.
The final card we're going to look at in this batch is Bank Job. It's a 2-cost event with Intellect, Combat, and Agility skill icons, Gambit, Double, and Illicit trait. As an additional cost to play Bank Job, spend an action, as all the doubles are. Investigators at your location gain a total of 8 resources, distributed as you wish. And it has some nice flavor text, as Skids and Finn are robbing a bank and not doing a particularly good job at remaining anonymous.
Subtle. Yeah. Although it's probably more subtle than Leo, who is the one I'm currently running this in, who is rolling up with his entire posse of allies, robbing this bank.
Once again, Lin Sang, doing artwork of the Arkham characters. It.
Good art. Good art. I don't actually have it in front of me right now, but I like it stands out to me even though I can't see it, which is a good sign. It's a lot of money, which is appropriate for the cards. Although, interestingly enough, it's not actually as much money as you think when you first look at the card, because it costs 2, and you gain 8, so you actually only net 6, and you spend 2 actions to do it. Hey, if we divide 6 by 2, how much do we get?
You get 2 emergency caches.
Correct. That is, in fact, the point I was going to, and you snapped me on it. This is 2 emergency caches, which is terrible for rogues. I think we can agree that this is really bad for rogues. But, as is often the case, it turns out that sometimes cards from one faction end up in the decks of other people, say for both Elio Anderson, for example, Elio Anderson, who really likes having a lot of economy in a single card, so he can just explode in money. Or if you are a big money rogue and you play this, and then your teammates are poor schlubs because they don't make like 40 billion resources every turn, give some out, right? Like I know it's in the rogue team to be selfish, but it's actually like a lot of money to give to a teammate occasionally and be like, okay, I'll take an emergency cash and you also take an emergency cash, and we're actually, you can play extra asset. Like I've used this to make Ursula play Kirby, and then also a fingerprint kit, and then also a magnifying glass, and also a fieldwork. Yeah. At which point, that scenario went pretty well because she had all the money she needed to play the game. And there is one more word on this card that I'd like to draw your attention to, and it's a word we've been hyping about already. It's an illicit. This goes into your market deck.
Yes.
If you don't want to put guns in your Underworld market deck, here's another option to put a card into your Underworld market deck that just gets you money. Like, I don't think this beats I'll Take That for most rogues. Interestingly enough, it does actually beat it for Leo, because Leo doesn't like basic investigates. So, it's kind of funny. But yeah, this has been a pretty reasonable slot filler. And it's just like, this is it's just an econ card that you can have in your, 10 extra deck slots. And once it starts competing with, it needs to be a card that goes in your market deck, suddenly the competition for this card is pretty there's not that much, and this is pretty reasonable to just I'll spend 1 resource to draw that, I'll spend 2 actions and 2 resources to play this, and I'll just give myself 5 resources and I give all my teammates 1, and we're all doing a lot better. Also, hilariously, the icons on this, I don't like 3 icons of different cards or 3 different icons on events and stuff, because just give me doubles. Unless you're playing the Bestow Resolve, which I've been trying because people were talking about it in the Drawn to the Flame podcast about how good that card is. And committing this for 3 wild icons actually also really, really fun. Just I don't think that necessarily should be going into my rating for this card, but it has been something I got to do, and it was great. So yeah.
So in my case, I look at it pretty close, but a little different. So I really like Bank Job because it is a net of 6 resources in 1 card slot and 1 of your 5 in the opening hand. This might be a testament to how I look at the game and how I play the game and the amount of weight I put on draw engines and stuff, but I like that you have a card that does a bigger thing in a single card. So I like this card a lot. This is actually what put the Underworld market thing over the top for me, because before this set you kind of needed to have guns unless you wanted to do, what was it, Payday. You had to spend XP on Payday, and you had to play Payday, and you had, in order to get resources.
You could also get away with it if you're willing to do the hidden pocket stuff, but you're
if you either had to do something like hidden pocket, something you had to really build around, or you had to play Payday. But the fact that it was a generic event that you could pad out your Underworld market was a really big deal for me. So I like this card a lot, even at level 0, even at 0 XP, because it's 1 single card slot that gives you a big impact. I actually appreciate that it has icons, because if this hits your hand as the game is going on, it can get kind of awkward to put this down, to actually play this. So the fact that this has icons but emergency cash doesn't is kind of a big deal for me.
Oh, absolutely. But it's the icons aren't a draw to the card for me. It's still better than emergency cash. Yes, if you are playing a rogue or somebody with unlimited rogue access and you are considering putting emergency cash in your deck, this card probably should just replace it. But that doesn't necessarily that is not the end all be all of appeal. Though I will say, that is a bar that Scrimshaw Charm really doesn't hit, and this does. So there is that.
Between this and Faustian Bargain, you have lots of good options for that are superior to emergency cash now. Yeah, so I like this. Plus, it's got great flavor text, and it's got great art. So it's you feel good about this card.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add other than that in solo the double can be a little awkward sometimes.
Yes.
That's all.
It's not just in solo. I mean, in solo it's probably a little bit more awkward, but my experience with this in 2-player, it can also be a little awkward. Although, admittedly, again, I was playing this in Leo, who doesn't get all the extra action stuff that rogues usually get. So, yeah, I mean, there are definitely... all the doubles have this kind of issue if you ever cleared a double action weakness which if you've been playing Arkham for any amount of time, you've probably done. Like that one spare action always feels a little awkward, and then you're looking at this and going, "Do I really want to do this to myself?" But yeah, the math doesn't lie. The numbers are reasonable.
Yeah,
And the ability to share resources.
I do appreciate the fact that as the game has gone on, the designers have been slowly sort of rolling out cards that try to condense stuff so you can actually play with, free up some of those deck slots for other things. And they've been doing that with skills where, it used to be you either played a perception or a manual dexterity, and now you're starting to see cards that combine those two, so you have either intellect skill icons or agility skill icons depending on what you need. And now we're seeing in the econ cards where it's like, okay, I would have played 2 copies of emergency cash in an old deck, and now I play 1 copy of bank job, and I basically have the same stuff, and I'm not giving up too much for it, so I can appreciate that. Ratings?
I like this card a lot. I'm gonna go +1. I think the amount of I think in one single card draw, like one of your opening 5, like it really gets you off to the races. Like you go from 5 to 11, and then you're like really good to go. I'm gonna give this one a +1. I am always happy to see this in the opening hand, but only for a little while, because then it goes in the underworld market.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge with this is that obviously if you play a turn 1, then you only have 1 action left, and so if you have to do any kind of like fighting, then your setup is going to be pretty limited at point, unless you have Ever Vigilant or Leo. Or Leo, and you get to just play stuff for free, or you get to play allies out. But yeah, I'm happy to join you at +1. I think it is somewhere between 0 and +1, and I think I'm leaning towards +1. It's like it is at the end of the day just a default econ card, and like Faustian Bargain is looms a large shadow over this. It is significantly better, but also I don't always want to put curse tokens into the bag, and this is I like it.
I've been playing a lot of like solo, say Jenny, where a curse is kind of nasty because she's 3/3/3/3. So like this kind of fills that role.
I will go +1 as well.
Oh, we almost forgot. There's one more thing about this card. The fact that it's illicit also means it works with fence, which means you're spending 1 action to play this. I mean, you're laughing, but that is actually
if you're doing the fence thing, sure,
if you're playing, you're singing the praise of Underworld Market. Like I gladly put fences in my Underworld Market because it makes all the other cards that I draw out of it afterwards way better. And spending 1 action, like. The biggest thing with this, like we just mentioned, the awkward thing is the double action. When it becomes a single action, this card's really nice.
That's going to do it for part 2 of our look at the rogue cards in the Feast of Hemlock Vale. Let us know in the comments down below what you think. Any final thoughts on this batch?
I like this one compared to part 1.
Sure. A lot of bangers in this one. I think the most interesting cards are yet to come, because we're going to hit a bunch of parlays in the next video. But I think I think Rogue is the most interesting faction in Hemlock Vale for sure, and I think this is kind of a good like snapshot of why that is. They've got a bunch of different things going on, and exploring new ways to do things that they've always done. Make money, get clues by messing with enemies, and high intellect, high agility. What's not to love?
Yeah, I really enjoyed our discussion on fake credentials, both level 0 and level 4. That is an interesting card, and I'm feeling good about it. Glad we talked about it.